Hey, what's going on today in Atlanta Bird Gang Land on Facebook Live? This is your Uncle Steve. I'm also on YouTube on Uncle Steve's Lounge. If you get a chance to slide over there, make sure you go and subscribe and hit a like button on the video. We appreciate it. Just joining y'all here today on a beautiful Monday evening. I know they say it's supposed to be getting kind of stormy here the next couple of days, so trying to enjoy this dry weather while we can. Looks like it's going to get a little ugly here pretty soon. Of course, the vibe in Atlanta is kind of on the side with the Atlanta Hawks yesterday, dropping one to Milwaukee. We're down 2-1. And of course, the big news, Trae Young being questionable with his bone bruise. Hopefully he'll be able to work his way through that. But we're going to be here talking football today because this is the Atlanta Bird Gang. And for the most part, it is very much a Atlanta Falcon site. So we're going to try to keep it Atlanta Falcons and keep things rolling in that direction. So today's conversation stems off something that I was talking to a couple of buddies about recently with the changes going on with the Atlanta Falcons. Julio Jones obviously being the big deal because now he's a Tennessee Titan, and we try to keep things a little bit on the memory of Julio, yes, but him as a Titan, obviously he can kick rocks at that point. As a player, cool, can't wait till you come as a Falcon, get in the Hall of Fame, have the Falcons uniform, most of the Falcon highlights, I get it. But as far as him, he's gone. We saw during this year, during the draft, that the fan base is a little split when it comes to Matt Ryan. There are many folks out there who still feel like Matt Ryan is a top elite, even in some minds, a top elite quarterback for our franchise. And eventually, he's going to work his way to bringing that elusive championship to the city of Atlanta. There are some that still think that. I cannot tell folks what to think and how to think. That's what they feel. Then, more power to them. And then there are some that thought we should have made a change around draft time. Thought we should have probably went after a quarterback and moved on since we were changing coaches, changing GMs. This would be a good time in the history, in the franchise history, to change the quarterback too. So it's safe to say that we probably have a split group of fans when it comes to our quarterback at this time. So today's question is, it sounds simple, but it's really not. What current player represents the heart and soul 2021 Atlanta Falcons? And this is not to say Matt is eliminated, but we are changing things. And with Matt's age and the comparison, I know the immediate things is Tom Brady's 43 and that. We're not talking about Tom Brady. We're talking about the average quarterback in the NFL. The average quarterback in the NFL usually doesn't get to 35. So, he's lucky he got to that part. What player currently on this roster represents the heart and soul of the Atlanta Falcons, represents this franchise going forward? There are a couple of names that, of course, we're going to throw out, but who represents us in the future? Not the 4-12 that we went last year and the 7-9. What player or players do you look at that you will see that represent the heart and soul of this team? That's what I'm trying to find out. Now, there are a few players that I'm going to mention, and more importantly, I want to hear what you all have to say. Again, please feel free to comment. I'm going to catch up on comments in a second. Also on YouTube, Uncle Steve's Lounge. Looking over here at Jory. How you doing, sir? Finally caught you on time. Yeah, I know. I popped in. I do a lot of pop-ins during the week. Monday is usually going to be a day I'll try my best to do it because I'm off on Mondays. So it's a lot easier to do that. So I am popping in here on the Monday. Hey, Winston, how you doing, brother? Good to see you. And Winston already pops in with his choice. He says Grady Jarrett. Grady Jarrett is definitely one of the players that I would bring up to say represents the heart and soul of the Falcons, and more importantly, probably the future. I was careful maybe not to say the future because Grady is somebody who has been here since 2016 season or 15 season, probably 15 or 16, and has been to the highest of heights, and of course last year through the lowest of lows. So he also, along with Matt Ryan, is one of those players who was involved in both sides of it. So Grady Jarrett is definitely somebody I look at. Brian, how you doing, sir? Say, until we get another quarterback and wins, there will be no definitive star on our team. Now, while I agree with your statement, I'm not saying the star on the team. I'm talking about who represents the heart and soul. When you start thinking about this team going forward, whether it's a star or not, who is the guy that comes up? Not so much the guy that's on commercials, not so much the person everybody is saying the highest paid, which is Matt. Who in the fans' mind is the heart and soul? I don't think this was a question last year. The heart and soul of this team for the last few years has been Julio Jones. Whether he was debating staying on the team, getting a new contract, mad about something, Julio Jones, in a lot of fans' mind, I think was that heartbeat. And the reason why I say Matt Ryan probably lost that mantle a couple of years ago is because when Matt was in the middle of the franchise change back in 2008, it's safe to say Matt Ryan from 2008 probably up until 2016 through his MVP run, it's very accurate to probably say the team moved and grooved with Matt Ryan. The last 2 or 3 years, you can give a case to say how the team may not move and groove with Matt Ryan, as Matt Ryan has continued to put up stats, as some of those loyalists will tell you with Matt Ryan, and he's put up these same stats for umpteen years. But for the last 3 or 4 years, he has been not bringing in the wins. Julio Jones, however, when you start thinking about that Super Bowl run, Matt Ryan was the MVP. So there's no debating about how good he was that year. But when you start thinking about the shine that Julio received, the big talk during the playoff run was Julio on the field, Julio off the field. Granted, we were successful with both, but there was a lot going on with the team that seemed like there was an extra gear kicked in when Julio was there. You think about Julio in that Carolina game during the Super Bowl year. You think about Julio, obviously, in the NFC Championship game, and Julio in the Super Bowl itself and the things he was able to do. Even as much as one play to me is symbolic of how much I think Julio meant to this team. Do you guys remember back in 2019? No, 2018. In 2018, and Julio had got all the receptions, got all the yards, but he had no touchdowns. And remember the little screenplay they threw to him against the Washington team at that time. And we had the game in hand, but they threw the ball to him and he ran down the sideline, and that was his first touchdown of the year. The Falcons got a penalty because basically every single person came off that sideline to congratulate Julio They didn't wait till he got to the sidelines. They got a 15-yard penalty because their guy scored a touchdown on that play. To me, if that doesn't tell me who stirs the drink, I don't know what else you can say. I think that was, to me, that's what sold me on saying Julio is the guy. So anyway, I'm going to go back and look at these comments, but I now that he's gone, who's that person? Tonio, how you doing, sir? George says, I think it's AJ Terrell. That is a very good candidate. Local guy. And had a really decent rookie season. And he's somebody that represents the future. When you start thinking about, AJ, yes, he had a tough first. Collectively, our team had a tough year, but he could represent the promise of the next couple of years of the franchise. He is definitely one of those guys that I look at as a candidate for that. Tonio says Matt is the heart and soul of this team, whether people like him or not, and not everything had to and have to go through him. And listen, I'm not going to sit here and try to talk anyone out of their opinion about Matt being the heart and soul. There are so many things, reasons why Matt can still represent that. You start thinking about not only things on the field, but off the field. I got a brand new respect. Not that I didn't have respect before. Last summer, during the summer of changes going on and everything with George Floyd and just the awakening of society of inequities, I should say, going on. And Matt Ryan not only came forward, but put his money where his mouth was and did things like that. I'm not saying that Matt does not try his best to rep the team at all times and go forward. My only argument I'll have with you on that is there are fans that I feel, I am kind of one of those, that I feel like with the changes going on right now with our franchise, I would love to see another quarterback and see how it works out. Now, I also made the promise to everybody that once we made the decision to keep Matt is our quarterback. I'm not going to sit here and go through all of the criticisms and stuff that everybody goes through and the Ryanite stupid phrase that people say and the noodle arm thing. I'm not going to go through all that. Matt is what he is on the field. But right now, Matt Ryan is the quarterback of my favorite team. So while Matt Ryan is the quarterback of my favorite team, I am going to support him. I'm not necessarily sure he is the guy that people look at as the guy for the Atlanta Falcons going forward, though. I think Matt is on borrowed time. I think because of Matt's contract, we had to keep him. Remember, and folks don't remember that little window at the beginning of Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith's regime. The very first month, there was not any kind of confirmation on whether we were going in the direction of quarterback or whether we were holding on to Matt or Julio. The question was asked directly, and they said, listen, if you come in and Matt is established in all-pro as he is, and you're going to get peppered with the, is Matt staying? Is Matt going question? There was never, during that first month until they restructured, there was never any commitment to Matt Ryan at the very beginning. Well, obviously now we restructured the contract and he's here, so we know the story. Matt Ryan is still living on borrowed time. Now, would I like to change the narrative and at the end of this year, after a playoff win or something out of the ordinary, or just the greatest improvement in the NFL this year, I will sit here and support Matt Ryan all day. But that's not really the question. The question is, for fans, who represents the heart and soul? Tonio said for him is Matt. I'm going to go with that with him. Good response, brother. Winston, Matt was UT back when he earned the name Matty Ice, but after the Super Bowl run, he stopped leading comebacks. That's true. That's facts. That's not talking about your quarterback. That's true. And that's one of the reasons why I say going forward, who is that person? Tobias, how you doing, brother? Say on defense, Grady, Debo, and maybe Foye. On offense, Ridley, Pitts, Hawkins, Darby. That adds a lot of folks. The argument, there was a time, especially during the Super Bowl run, where I kind of thought the Grady Debo thing would be that combo that would definitely take especially the defense into a different realm. While Grady has consistently earned the respect of NFL folks around, you hear a lot of people respect Grady and everything. Debo has kind of leveled off. I love Debo, and I think he's still a quality player on this team by far. I'm not trying to get rid of Deion Jones, but I will say he did kind of level off from that above average guy. Grady's an above average guy. Grady is close to being all pro. Needs some help around him to help do that, but great. Matter of fact, somebody was having an argument with me. Grady doesn't put up any sacks. He couldn't put it. Yeah, that's because 2 or 3 people have to smother him every play. If you watch Atlanta Falcons football, there's only one person on the defensive line they truly pay attention to, and that's Grady Jarrett. So I see that. The Ridley piece is going to be kind of interesting. Obviously, Ridley is going to have to go through the transition of going from the second receiver to the number 1 receiver. There are going to be a lot of folks still in the Julio Jones love fest this year. So he's already battling another, I don't want to say demon, but he's battling another fight to win over those fans who thought Julio got a raw deal on this. I don't know how, but again, I can't get in the minds of every fan. There are some fans who still think almost 20 years later that Mike Vick got a raw deal, even though he got himself in trouble. So Ridley has another battle to go through, but he's definitely a candidate. I'm surprised the first time I've heard Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is very much a candidate for that. Kyle Pitts represented. He's the first player chosen by the new franchise leaders, by the GM and the head coach. He would obviously be a candidate for somebody who you would say would be that new heart and soul player, that heartbeat of the team. That's some good calls on that, Tobias. Julio was the star of the field, and he is who people look for and look to make that play. Fair point. Artavius, if he lives up to the hype surrounding him, it might be Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts is somebody who, when you start looking at, what he could be, the potential he could be. He got some glowing words from his fellow tight ends from the tight end camp and everything. So, I mean, that's really a good call right there. Vaughn, great question. Thank you, sir. I say Big Grady. Grady is definitely one of my candidates for that. Grady Jarrett is that guy. I've kind of noticed a lot of things shifting in his way this summer. I know he just got the podcast that they do on the Atlanta Falcons.com site and on YouTube. And he's been more prominent on commercials and things of that nature. So there is a shift internally to push the brand of Grady Jarrett out there. And I think he's somebody that not only still is youthful enough to have that mantle, but he also still backs it up with his quality of play. and he's still somebody revered in the league, and still got that dog in him. Still, if you see him on the field, it is not that pushover. It's not that still feisty, still will get a flag every now and then, and somebody that represents that tough, rugged, dyslexic for a minute, tough, rugged football player. So I think that's a good candidate for that. What's going on, Jackie? How you doing today, sir? Artavia says, I think Grady, Debo, and Ridley and AJ Terrell have a shot at it. 4 good names. Again, the Debo thing, if you had asked me, if I had asked this question maybe 4 years ago, I probably would have said Debo in a heartbeat. But yeah, I think AJ Terrell is a great candidate, and AJ obviously has the local ties to help him out when you start talking about this. Brian said, I feel traditionally the heartbeat of our team has been represented in the era in our franchise, meaning not only were they the best player on our team, but a top 5 player in the NFL. The Deion era, the Vic era, and the Julio era. Right now, only Ridley has the potential to go up to that level. Well, very well said. And you're right probably about the eras. When you talk about the Deion era that he was here, short-lived, you're absolutely right. He was one of those guys. Michael Vick, don't even need to say anything. And I don't want to sit here and I know I just finished talking about, certain things about Matt. We can't ignore the changes in this franchise when Matt Ryan was at the helm at the beginning of his tenure. When Matt Ryan came here, there were folks that were saying it would be 3 to 4 years before this franchise ever saw another winning season. While we were surrounded, that 2018, aside of the acquisition of Michael Turner, it's not like we got heroes on that 2018. I think Keith Brooking was on the downside of his tenure here. You got a couple of cast off 1-year guys to come in. Roddy White had truly not developed yet into what he became a couple of years later. So Matt Ryan came in raw in 2008. And it's only fair to give Matt Ryan part of that era too. Matt Ryan, from 2008 until the Super Bowl year, Matt Ryan definitely needs to get some love for that. Now, did Julio represent that extra it player that you don't have? When you start talking about that Deion player, that extra special player that people come to see. When Julio was drafted out of Alabama, that was the guy. What was the thing? Mike Smith. Explosive plays. That was it. That's where the explosive plays. We need those guys for those explosive plays, and that's where Julio fit the bill to come in and do that. But I don't want it to ever be mistaken about what Matt Ryan meant to this franchise and means to this franchise. I mean, he's still here. Julio's not. So I'm going to give him his just due and respect. Now, as a fan, I would like the level of play and the level of I want him to raise his game up again as much as he can. My pessimistic attitude or pessimistic vision just says, if I see somebody who's not able to spark the team like he used to, I'm almost thinking let's make the change before we get stuck. You know what I mean? That's why I was looking forward to bringing in somebody new, even if they didn't start this year. or whatever. But I was looking forward to bringing somebody in that could at least change some of the mojo around here. But yeah, the Matt Ryan era, which is currently still going on, can't be ignored. Yeah, Julio was good, but let's not uh, let's not fool ourselves. Uh, Going back to the question, Kyle Pitts, because we haven't seen him play on a pro field, that's why I'm a little hesitant to put him up there. But he's definitely one of the top 5 candidates for that. Kyle Pitts, a lot of folks thought he was the best athlete coming out of this draft. Definitely think he's a generational tight end, which these days, when you start talking about the Kelseys and the Kittles and the Zach Ertz and folks like that are playing, people are putting him on that pedestal already without catching one pass. So I hope he evolves into that player, and I hope he evolves quickly. If Kyle Pitts comes on here and catches on quick, he will become that guy, because it was kind of the hype Julio had coming out of Alabama. And if y'all remember, it was Julio, AJ Green. A lot of folks local here wanted to get AJ Green because he was the Georgia product and wanted him to come here so bad. But looks like they made the right decision. Not saying AJ Green is not good, but it turned out, I think, if you would have put those two against each other, I think we ended up going in the right direction. I saw Foye Oluokun on that list. I am definitely a huge fan of him. I was a huge fan of him a couple of years ago when they threw him in there cold, and he started showing up on especially special team plays. I used to watch him, and I was like, that cat needs to play. And then when he came out and got a little bit more time in 2019, and I was like, okay, this guy is ready for prime time. And last year, arguably, even with Grady out there, I think he was our defensive MVP for 2020. Especially after we lost Devondre Campbell, we've always been looking for that other linebacker to come in there and help. We're still, I think, a linebacker short, but looking for him to do that. Does anybody think Mike Davis, because of his local ties, could be that guy? I can see the Stevenson High School product being somebody locally that could bring a little flair if he's successful. I'm not going to be naive and try to act like we're bringing in Derrick Henry. He was a backup on Carolina, did an admirable job while Christian McCaffrey was gone, and is brought in here expected to play a role of probably 10 to 15 carries at minimum. So could he be that guy that we look at to say, that's the future of this team? That's the future of these guys going forward. Could be. Calvin Ridley, again, like I said before, I think he's going to end up battling a little bit more of the Julio shadow. That Julio, that's a long shadow cast over this franchise. And the first time or two that Calvin doesn't catch a ball or doesn't make a play, the unfortunate comparison is going to be there. The transition from Roddy White to Julio was seamless, because while at one time, probably in 2012, Roddy White was the guy, but Julio was so talented that you saw, from a talent-wise, he was probably a little bit above Roddy, but Roddy was the guy. So when Roddy left, yes, there were people that still longed for Roddy White in the franchise, but knew we were in good shape as far as our number one receiver was concerned. this is a whole different thing. Calvin Ridley is going to be battling the ghost of Julio for at least the next year or two. Now, coming off of a second team All-Pro designation doesn't help. That lets people know that, hey, he can do the job. Unless, Ridley did his thing last year. And really, a couple of years ago when he led the team in touchdowns. Calvin Ridley is a very good wide receiver. And with a year or two could get up into elite status if he keeps improving and keeps climbing. So he could be that person that you look at and would say, maybe he's the guy. Tobias says, I don't see Mike Davis because of his age. He's already 28 years old. And I hear you on that. I think I was thinking, and again, while I didn't say future, I mentioned it in part of my description. So I do appreciate the age being brought up. Even though I think Grady is 27, right? Is Grady 27? Grady 28? Only reason I brought him up more is because of the local ties here playing high school here in Atlanta. Look, that was one of the main reasons I was high on the Justin Fields possibility. The Justin Fields possibility, not only turning the page on the type of quarterback that we have coming in here, but you can't ignore the fact of his ties to high school here, the little long year in Georgia. I just keep thinking about those red seats, man. As a business person, I keep thinking about the red seats that I'm sitting next to when I'm at the game, at least last time in 2019. I'm thinking about bringing butts in the seats and bringing that fan interaction we haven't received since we were in the Georgia Dome. So when I think about the possibility, or when I thought about the possibility of bringing a Justin Fields in, that was part of my thought process. The local guy, having people there local who were used to supporting him from the time he was there, the time he was at UGA, and shoot, some people still at OSU. I was thinking about that. So I was trying to combine. Mike Davis, I'm sure there will be a contingency that will be there, that will be here to support him. It won't be on that level, I'm sure, unless he starts balling out now. Now, Mike Davis gives us 1,200 and 1,300 yard season, and he becomes that guy. Maybe he does bring an element into town. Maybe he does. So, hey, let's see what happens. As a Winston says, if Kyle Pitts gets a 100-yard game within his first 3 games, he will be anointed savior. I want him to reach his full potential, but I need to see what he does in the second half of the season before I'm fully sold. I agree with you 100%. What you don't want to do is push somebody up there, somebody with his potential. You don't want to over-expect. Listening to all the draft gurus and all the mock draft folks and everything like that, Kyle Pitts, we shouldn't miss Julio's numbers, because according to them, Kyle Pitts is supposed to take over. But to your point, I'm not sure if I want to dump all that stuff on him that early. I think you keep it cool as a rookie. So Arlon said, if Frank Darby plays well, he can, because he has that swag and mentality. Arlon, Frank Darby could absolutely be that guy. And I know he's kind of mesmerized folks early because of his, dude seems like somebody I want to kick it with on the side, somebody I want to listen to, somebody I want to, pick his brain, somebody I just want to have fun with. He does seem like that guy. The only thing that scares me is that I want people to realize he was a 6th-round pick for a reason. He got drafted. This is true. But let's make sure we don't put the cart before the horse again and get super excited over a video or two or over words. I don't need to remind y'all about Tech McKinley. I don't need to remind y'all about these guys that come out and they talk a good game. I'm not saying he's talked a good game. He said he's going to bring excitement. He's going to bring passion. I agree with all of that. I'm cool with passion. Matter of fact, I love passion. I hope he does bring it. I hope he does bring an energy to the team because Lord knows we need it. But when you're doing all of that, I want you to be a football player and bring your talent onto the field. He had some good things he did at Arizona State, no doubt. No doubt. And it's probably a good chance that he's going to make this squad. I don't know. I know they re-signed Christian Blake, but I don't know if he's going to make this squad as a wide receiver. Let's hope Frank Darby does, even at worst case scenario, wide receiver. Maybe he'll be that hype guy on special teams. You know, special teams always has that one guy that's just, extra hype coming off the tackle or just hyping the guys up. That's great. I am just such a believer in back it up. Back it up. Talk is great, but you gotta back it up. I think he's one of those guys that if everything kind of plays in place, I have a feeling he's gonna be really good. He's going to be one of those guys that we're going to look back and say, man, we stole him in the 6th round. I hope so, at least. That's my hope, at least, that he can do that. It said, speaking of local guys, have you tuned into Grady Jarrett's podcast? It's pretty good. Actually, I have, and I was speaking to that earlier, how the Atlanta Falcons seem to be pushing him when you start talking about that player, pushing him into that spotlight for things like that. I like the idea. I like that, he's being thrust into that. It's good. It's good at that. I think, Lisa, that's one of the best things that has happened this offseason. Matt represents the problem when you have somebody here for a long time. Tom Brady longevity has been 80 to 90% winning. It's been such a roller coaster with Matt Ryan recently. Matt took us on the Screen Machine up to the top in 2012, made that one little dip, then took us all the way up to the crest, the very first hill of the Screen Machine, for those of you who are at Six Flags, going all the way up to the Screen Machine. And then 2018 has been that long dip. And for some reason, we still haven't reached the bottom of that dip. Let's hope we even out a little bit this year. With Grady Jarrett, at least his play has maintained its level of intensity, fire, and passion. And I think that does come across on his podcast on AtlantaFalcons.com. It's actually a really good listen to. Winston, I was talking to someone yesterday. Darby reminds me of Dez Bryant a lot. Yeah, he does seem to have a little bit of that. Dez Bryant, I hope he has the initial talent Dez Bryant had. I think sometimes Dez Bryant tried so hard to be Michael Irvin to me. And I just want Frank Darby to be Frank Darby. I don't want him to be Julio. Oh, well, he's not Julio because Julio didn't talk. But I want the fire and the passion, but more importantly, I want somebody who can get 3rd and 8. I want somebody who can score some touchdowns. I truly believe he can be that player. He can be that heartbeat. He can be that heart and soul player. If he makes the roster and he turns out to make a couple of big plays, I would love nothing more to be talking about Frank Darby. But every time I start thinking about people who talk a lot more before they start playing, I just go back to McKinley. And I start thinking about that draft night. And I know it was emotion over his family and things like that. But I know that grabbed his emotion. But I also remember him talking quite a bit. I also remember the promise of the cutting of the dreads if you don't get these many sacks and things like that. Stop talking and put it on the field. He's a rookie, Frank. So I'm going to give him a bye this year. Maybe when he gets that first year under his belt and sees how rough it is for 17 games instead of the 10 or 11 that they play in college, then I'll be willing to kind of, give him a little leeway. But he is a candidate for that. Nikki says, with us running a 3-4 base, now I think it would be Fourier. He creates a lot of turnovers, and that's what turns hit. They might move Dion to the outside, Nikki. That would actually be a better spot for him with his speed. Because Fourier manned the middle quite a bit. Because I think Dion was actually hurt. When Dion was hurt in 2019, Fourier filled in for him pretty good at the mic. So I would love to see Dion play on that outside. I don't know what Dean Pease is going to come up with. I know if they have some type of flexing into the 3-4 and back into the 4-3, I think Deion Jones would be a perfect candidate for that. I think as a blitzing linebacker, that's right up Deion's alley. So, yeah, you're right. With a 3-4 base, I could see Dion flourishing and Fourier being that guy in the middle patrolling everything. That's good point there, Nikki. Winston, how do you feel about Grady's contract? Seeing as how we are switching to a 3-4 and Grady will be playing the end. I feel like it will end up in a Kelsey debate over being paid as a tight end or wide receiver. Well, for Grady, talent is talent. And I know Dean Pease, judging from his past, will find a way to make the most of his talent. You're absolutely right, Winston. In a 3-4, at least the 3-4s that I've seen that have been successful, that D tackle is that big, sloppy, Steve size guy in the middle that can just suck things up. And Grady is a little light already for a D tackle. Now you're going to throw him on the outside, which he automatically becomes a little heavy. Does he have the speed to do it? Absolutely. I would love to see them get Grady to gain a little bit of weight, maybe 270, 275. Maybe that's too heavy for him to move like he does. But I would love to see him pack on a little bit and try that position, try that nose tackle. He would definitely be a little lighter than the average nose. Most guys in the 3-4 in there are at least 310, between 310, 320, something like that. I think first person that comes to mind, I don't know why he flipped to my mind, my man from the Ravens, Nada, when he was there, and he only comes to my mind because Dean Pease was there during that time. That guy absolutely soaked in. I think the last time Atlanta was successful with the 3-4 was our buddy Big Grady Jackson was in the middle. And when I say he was the prototypical 3-4 nose tackle, he was the guy. And we actually had some success with him manning that position. He plays at 288 now. And, well, you know what, Winston? for in the 3-4, you might need to get a little bigger. I think now, I'm not saying Grady can't pull it off, but can you imagine 288? Last guy that I saw being that big and doing it, what was the guy from Florida State? He did it the Super Bowl year with Jernigan, the guy Timmy Jernigan at the Jernigan. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong. Guy came from Florida State. That was a big boy. And they had him on the edge in their defense, and he was very successful. Listen, Grady is talented enough to do anything. So I don't mind seeing him on the edge. I just want to see them do whatever they need to do to generate a pass rush. Whatever they need to do. Whether that be Mariner, whether that be a revitalized and lighter in the pocket Dante Fowler, I don't even care. The new guy from Notre Dame, they just got in the draft. Whatever it takes for us to get some semblance of a rush on the quarterback, I'll take it. Winston says Vince Wilfork played at 235, 250. He did not pay at 235 and 250. Yeah, you might want to check that. You might have meant to put a 3 in front of that. Vince Wilfork did not play at 235. He did not play at 235. I don't even know if you know what 235 is. Lisa says, just did a quick Google. It says Grady weighed 290. I also remember him saying on one of his podcasts when he was asked about his weight and training regimen. Okay, y'all got that on Grady. I will say Wilfork was definitely not 235 during the Sean, yeah, 300. Yeah, Vince was not 235. If Vince was 235, we would, yeah. I was just about to say, okay, Winston, I see you. I said, look, because if he lost that much weight, I want to get some of that Slim Fast and see how he did that. But y'all know what I'm saying. I'm saying in order to man that in a 3-4, you gotta have some weight in the middle. I would love to. I'm gonna get somebody in here, and I'm not gonna say who it is yet, but I'm gonna get somebody in here who is a coach and can speak to that. We had a little bit of an extensive talk about the Falcons switching into their new defense. So hopefully I can get that in July, maybe right around the same time that we start thinking about the camp. Speaking of camp, I was excited to see the thing, and I've already bought my ticket. They're having the open practice at Mercedes-Benz. That ought to be pretty good. That is August 7th on Saturday. Saturday, August 7th. I look forward to going there. I already got my tickets. So I look forward to seeing that practice. Lisa said Vince Wilfork was huge, definitely the 300s. Winston said I tried to donate a kidney to him a couple of years back. Wow. Look, man, that guy was, I'm going to tell you, man, he wreaked havoc. That dude was very talented. Just a big contributor to the New England success during the 2000s. Big time guy in that realm. But Grady, going back to the heartbeat of the team again, Grady would probably be my leading candidate. I would say, as far as the player who represents that, would love to see Kyle Pitts get into that role. Grady represents the Atlanta Falcons, but he's also that defensive guy. Again, no disrespect at all to Matt Ryan, but Matt, though he's still on the team, Matt represents past success. the guys going that the young guys hopefully represent going into the future. And look, with this offense that we have a couple of candidates for that. I already mentioned Mike Davis. If he turns out to be a stopgap between drafting a very talented running back, I think he's only 2 years on his contract, so obviously he's probably not meant to be here for the long haul. But you have him. You have Calvin Ridley, who's about to go into his second contract here with the Atlanta Falcons, coming off his best season as a pro. You talk about a rookie in Kyle Pitts that the sky's the limit on what he should be able to bring to this offense. You still have Hayden Hurst on the other side, kind of the forgotten man, but he's still somebody that I think that's going to be able to contribute to the team and be able to stretch the offense and do some things. I hate that we didn't get a chance to truly, see him full-fledged last year. I think he showed flashes that he can really be an important part. Maybe now that people will be paying attention to Kyle Pitts, he might be able to get his shine. Don't forget about Russell Gage. Russell Gage on the other side of the offense is going to benefit from Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley getting a lot of attention. He did a great job, 70 receptions last year. Did a great job of becoming that guy, even when Julio missed the last half of the season. Russell showed to be a very dependable wide receiver, young wide receiver. He's not into his second contract yet, but I look at the things that he's done, and hopefully, Matt, with the new coach, maybe this can be something that he grows into. I hope he does. We'll see, but let's hope he does do that. Lisa said, do you think Kyle Pitts needs to get heavier? Seeing he weighs 240, Kelsey is 260, Kittle is 250. I can remember Cam Jordan saying that Cam was light. He ain't though. So, of course, I took the comment with a grain of salt. Cam Jordan, and I've said this before, Lisa. Cam Jordan might be the best front-running athlete in the NFL. Cam, if you talk to Cam Jordan, and he's talented now, don't get me wrong. If he came to the Falcons, I welcome him with open arms because he's that talented. But he talks so much junk for somebody who hadn't been past a conference championship. You would think he's been to 3 Super Bowls and knows all about winning and whatever. And it's one thing, I heard him bragging about NFC South championships, which is great. And it's nice that you're making the playoffs and you're getting in that. But I heard the comments that he made about Kyle Pitts and talking about he's going to push him off the line and all of that. Cam Jordan is such a loudmouth and hot bag of air. I can't wait to see the New Orleans franchise dip down after Drew Brees leaves. I truly think that they're going to level off a little bit this year because Drew, say what you want to say, Drew was a leader on that team, and it's going to be interesting. Anyway, back to your original question. I don't think they're going to make him lose weight. With the loss of Julio Jones, I think he'll line up at tight end a few times, but I think you're going to see him get off of that line a little bit. That's why they got the other guy, Lee, and his last name keeps escaping me. But the other guy that they got as the blocking tight end, I think you might see him in there a lot more and see Kyle split off. Listen, you got somebody at 240 that can run as fast as he does. I don't care what you call him, tight end, wide receiver, whatever. I can see them doing a lot more of that. Now you're going to come into some of the problems that I think that was Winston was talking about as far as whether you're a tight end, whether you're a wide receiver, that kind of debate. But hey, let's worry about that when that comes. And also, let's get him signed. I know he's the only draft pick not signed right now, unless something has happened in the last few hours. But yeah, I don't think they're gonna look to make him gain weight. I still think in theory he's gonna be a tight end, but I don't think he's gonna be that big blocking tight end that people uh, think he's gonna be. Anthony, what's going on? Say Hayden Hurst is the real deal. Yeah, he showed flashes. I think last year, because we had so many things happen injury wise, that we really didn't get a chance to see the talent that he has. I thought that was a great trade we made, and the flashes that I saw from him still show me that he could play in this league. And think about it, he got declined for his 5th-year option, so this is his year to show up. So I'm sure he's going to be very motivated for whoever his next team, whether we re-sign him or whoever his next team coming down the pipe is. He's going to try to show everybody he can do his thing. James Johnson says Kyle Pitts will be the face soon. That's definitely one of the leaders that we talk about. Hey, what's up, Coach? How you doing? Say Jake Matthews quietly has a voice in the locker room. I'm almost thinking you mean Jake Matthews. He is not the face of the team, but definitely a respectable presence on offense. I'm gonna tell you something. And I was listening to Sirius XM, Kevin, and this guy called in and dogged out Jake Matthews, dogged him out. And I think that, listen, when you have a 4-12 team or a 7-9 team and you continue to see your quarterback getting sacked, I get it. That's the first thing you say. Your offensive line is trash. I get it. There's so many variables in there that we as fans don't think about when you start talking about what caused the sack. And I think people automatically go to Jake Matthews because they see the money and see what he's getting and say, he's trash. This guy on radio, he dogged him out. Do y'all realize Jake Matthews did not allow a lot of sacks last year? You do realize that most of the pressure was coming up the middle. Hence our problem with our guards for the last couple of years. And really more the right side and the center, as Alex Mack took a little bit of a decline. And the revolving door at left guard has really never been solved. I do like Lindstrom, and I think Lindstrom's going to be okay. I think the jury's still out on McGarry. That's why they brought in the guy from Michigan this year, I think, to kind of challenge him on that other side. But I think we're in good shape with Jake, and I respect that what you're saying about him on the inside, because you got to have one of those big uglies to be a leader on the team. You know, the days of the Jeff Van Notes and Mike Kins and old Mud Duck Todd McClure that solidified that offensive line those days. And then Alex Mack for the last few years. Yeah, we don't have those guys. So right now you do need that steadying force on the offensive line. So yeah, I can see how you could put them in that category, Kevin. Absolutely. Lee Smith, that's his name. And you know what, Montavious, every time I keep and somebody told me that, I think it was yesterday when I was talking about Lee Smith. Lee Smith to me is a big pitcher that used to pitch for the Chicago Cubs. And for those of you who have as many gray hairs, or maybe as I do, you remember big giant Lee Smith from the Cubs. He probably could have played tight end. He was a big boy for the Chicago Cubs. He was the closer and really good, but just played on some really bad teams there. But he was one of the big guys on there. Winston says Lee Smith. Hurst looks bigger in OTA picks. I think Hurst and Pitts will barely be off the field together because their versatility that each brings. I can believe that too. Yeah. Listen, if anything, they're going to get a crash course on blocking because I truly think this year the mantra is going to be run the ball by all means necessary. Because in order for all of this stuff to work, we can talk about potential of Kyle Pitts. We can talk about Calvin Ridley exceeding whatever Julio did. We can talk about the improvement of Russell Gage and Matt Ryan staying clean in the pocket. None of that happens if we don't run the ball. So I hope, and I'm pretty sure this training camp coming up, the stress is going to be about running the ball. We got to run the ball this year. Because whether it's Mike Davis, whether it's Quadre Ollison, whether it's Cordell Patterson, or whoever they have that there in the back, if those folks don't average 4 yards a carry, it's going to be the same 600 yards attempts for the year for Matt Ryan. And we're going to be singing the same song for this year as we've been doing for the last 3. One of the reasons Ryan Tannehill improved his lot as a quarterback is because you have the absolute best running back in the game in your backfield. Do you realize how much pressure that takes off of you as a quarterback? To know that half of your defensive players are keyed in on the guy in the backfield. That opens everything up. The little tight end from Tennessee that everybody was mentioning is so good. Of course you're going to be good. Because you got a running back for the last 2 years have put up dang near 4,000 yards in 2 years. So Arthur Smith, if you don't think he realizes he doesn't have Derrick Henry here, but I'm sure he's going to try to simulate some type of running game so he can have the options with his quarterback, with his tight ends, and with his receiving core, which he inherited a pretty good receiving core. So that's going to be the thing I think they end up doing. Anthony says Matt Schaub, when opportunity to play behind the same offensive line, Matthew and the guards played well. You say what you want to say about Matt Schaub. Matt Schaub has always had a little bit of mobility. For those of you that remember, Matt Schaub was drafted the same draft as Mike Vick. And I know you're probably talking about the game that he came in, the Seattle game, where he came in for Matt Ryan and threw for 400 yards. Matt Schaub, even in his 40s, had a little bit of athleticism to it, a little bit of stretch to play out to him. That was just in him. He had that when he was in Virginia. He was a little big dude, and I'm not trying to mistake him for any of the newfangled guys who are running a little bit quicker and things like that. But he did have the ability to stretch the play. And I'm not trying to make Matt Schaub Hall of Fame. Let's say that too. But yeah, I believe it. But Matt's not that guy, meaning Matt Ryan is not that guy. The only year he was some semblance of that guy was the Super Bowl year, and he was forced to do those things. Now, I did see some practicing during the T-shirt thing. It's so hard for me to call these. I know they're OTAs, but there's nothing you're going to learn from folks in T-shirts and shorts. Nothing. All the pictures I kept seeing, Mike Davis with big thighs and people, oh my goodness. Frank Darby going in the air high to catch a ball within a T-shirt and shorts. Yeah, great for social media. Awesome. But until I see it on the field, none of that stuff means anything. Kyle Pitts is built up. He is. But let me see him in the uniform, taking hits, as Lisa was talking about, Cam Jordan talking about pushing him off the line. Let me see how you work in that situation before I start, anointing you as the next best thing. Anthony said, you're right, Steve. If we don't have a run game, it's going to be a long season. Yeah, that's the game. Talk about the Seattle game. Winston, if Mike Davis goes for around 800 to 900 yards on the ground, Hawkins can definitely come in and give us at least 600. Listen, I think it's going to be running back by committee. I think in their dream of dreams, Mike Davis would be able to do some things. And let's not forget Quadre Ollison for now. He's on the team. He's the only person running back that's left. They thought enough of him to keep him on the roster. And he actually would have I think, ended up costing more money than Ito would, I believe, if I looked at that correctly, when they cut Ito. So I don't think there's going to be one particular guy that they're going to look at. And just like last year when we got Gurley, I think the thought that we were going to, there was not a thought to rotate him in with Brian Hill. I thought they thought seriously that Gurley was going to give them 1,000 to 1,200 yards. That was the thought. And his yards per carry were not great. He did have a nose for the end zone when he got inside the 20, but he did not live up to the $5 million contract he received. So I think Arthur Smith is going to try to run this thing by any means necessary, which is fine by me. So again, I just wanted to touch bases because I know a lot of you are probably getting ready to switch on to that game tonight, the Clippers and Phoenix. I think Phoenix is going to close it out tonight. I want to have a lot of positivity going into the Hawks tomorrow, but I tell you what. With that bone bruise, and I've never had a bone bruise on my ankle or whatever, but I have had a bone bruise on my hip before, and that hurts. So I can only imagine, Trey's game is not just his three-point shooting. What makes Trey Young elusive is his ability to run around and run by Drew Holiday and run by anybody that's checking him. If he is hampered, as you saw he was in that fourth quarter yesterday, it's going to be an uphill climb. And am I giving up on them? Absolutely not. But our ability to hit open shots yesterday was just killer. And Bogey, look, we don't get to where we got to this year if Bogdanovich doesn't play like he did in the second half. Bogdanovich by far was the second best option scoring-wise on the team from the time Nate McMillan took over. And he came back, and Bogdanovich came back from the injured list. He was lighting it up. Even in the New York Knicks series, he was the man. But ever since he got hurt, you can tell it's a different story. He did seem to move around a little bit better yesterday. I did notice. But if that shot isn't hitting, folks, it might be a short series. We might not make it to the weekend. Let's hope that we end up doing that. Cam says Todd Gurley ran for 800 yards and 8 touchdowns last year, and the offense was still trash. Don't get stuck on that number of 800 plus for Mike Davis because Matt Ryan is still quarterback. No, Cam, the 800 plus, I am going to get stuck on it because you got to remember, Cam, 800, it doesn't take, listen, 800 yards in 16 games, you only have to run 50 yards. That wasn't what's killing it. Forget the numbers. You're running for 2-point-something yards a carry. Todd Gurley had one good game last year where he really stretched out and had a yard per carry over 4. The problem with Todd last year was Todd wasn't breaking tackles. Todd's yards per carry were not great. In order to have a successful team and a successful play action in your repertoire, is you got to get at least 4 or 5 yards to carry. We weren't even close. So yeah, I'm not going to get. I'm not stuck on the 800 plus. I'm stuck on give me 4 to 5 yards to carry. I don't care if 4 people do it. I loved what Shanahan did in Frisco with Breda and Coleman and Moser that year when they went to the Super Bowl. Spread that thing around. Give everybody a little rest. Everybody ate. So you were able to spread that thing around. Matt Ryan's still the quarterback, but Matt Ryan will definitely benefit if he has a running game. Am I saying he's going to be the next Tom Brady? No. But you got to have a running game to keep people honest. We can't keep people honest. If everybody knows we can't run the ball, guess what? They sit in the house. And especially when they knew last year we had no left guard and a declining center, they knew they could get through. Alex Mack did not have the greatest year last year. I'm surprised they signed him back over there with Frisco. I don't know whether he's planning on starting or not. But no, I hear you about not getting stuck on it. But at the same time, I got to have my running backs get 4. I'm more concerned about my running backs getting 4 yards to carry than I am about them running for 1,200 yards. The 1,200 yards I brought up is based on hopefully the average carries will get them totally that much yards. Right. So let me reiterate. If I have 3 running backs and all of them get me 600 yards, but I keep my yards per carry at about 4, that's what I want. So let me switch that narrative. That's what I want from my running backs, the yards per carry. So I will switch that up so you don't think I'm crazy. Yeah, the 800 yards is great if they're getting the yards. But if you're getting 800 yards and you had 270 carries, then that's a problem. But I understand what you're saying. I absolutely get what you're saying. You're on point when you talk about that. Absolutely. Anyway, again, getting ready to check out this NBA game. Glad to talk to y'all. If y'all want to keep commenting, keep putting it in. Let folks know what we're doing here on. We just popped in today, but we do more content over on YouTube. Uncle Steve's Lounge. You'll see my little bearded face on one of the things, and hopefully we'll get into some more football. I know as the Hawks go on, people are still getting into them, but we'll eventually get back to full-time 100% football. That's why I wanted to make sure we, kept things pigskin here for a little while, just to let everybody know Atlanta Bird Gang still is the premier sports group on Facebook. Y'all take care. Have a great night, and we'll catch up with y'all later on, okay? See y'all later on in the week.